All right, we'll continue working on this Eave detail. Next thing I'm going to do is bring this insulation layer all the way up to the underside of the plywood sheathing. So in order to do that, I need to create a hatch type. So I'm going to go to region, filled region, and when I look and see what we have here, I have a number of types, but the one that I need needs to look like this rigid insulation. So just to sort of test this out, I'm going to go and choose the diagonal crosshatch. And let's take a look and see what that hatch pattern looks like. Click on the check mark. So it's a diagonal, which is not what I'm looking for. So if I go and I choose ortho, that's the one that is the same graphic as the rigid insulation. So I'm going to go ahead and construct a region to extend that. So I'll go back to annotate and region, and I'll begin to draw some lines. So for the side line, most of these lines I want to make using the line type that I created for thin to medium. So I'm going to click here and let's see here. Let's draw another line from this point up, and then connect it back. Now this bottom one, I don't want to see that line. So I'm going to create a line, but this one, I want to make it invisible. All right, now it looks like I missed my mark here. So let's move this over. It should go to, I don't know why it's not letting me snap to that point there. Let's try this again. From this point, I want to move it to here. Looks like I got it, and it adjusted everything else if I hit the check mark. And again, I need to change it to ortho crosshatch. Okay, now it didn't quite cover here as I would like to. So instead of the invisible boundary, well, I have a couple of options. Let's do this. Let's move this down just a little bit. And let's see how that looks. Yeah, that's better. There's a little line that's appearing, but I think we will not be seeing that. Right now, I also need to create a region to serve as the sheathing layer here. This insulation needs something to attach to, and basically that's what this will be doing. So I'm going to go to the detail lines again, scroll all the way down to my thin medium. I'll draw a line from this point up to that sheathing layer. And for this part, I'm going to try to make a white line that covers that. Let's see if that takes care of that issue. Maybe I don't have a white line. So I have a couple of options here. One would be to make a new line type that's white and cover this. The other one would be to, instead of making this out of detail lines, make another region. So a filled region and assign solid white to it. Some lines can be invisible lines, like this one and this one, and we have to come back and do that one. It won't let me snap to anything, but the one that needs to be a thin medium line is this one. So let's see if we can. Oops. We'll complete the line and then change it. Click on it instead of invisible line. Let's make that a medium line. And then I'll continue to make some invisible lines, one here and one from here to here, a check mark. And we have something resembling what we want. I can see I need to make this one in the back here, and probably the one at the top. Edit the boundary, click on the line. Let's change it from invisible to medium, then medium. Same thing with this one. Check mark. Okay, there we go. Now we can start adding some of the metal framing components. So what we'll add first are the tracks. So this is a manufacturer of light gauge metal framing. Clark Dietrich is the name of the company. And you can see here, it says here standard web sizes, and it lists a bunch of them. This is the web, and this is the flange or the leg. So the leg heights vary. So we're going to use 3 5/8 inch runners or tracks that have a leg of 1 1/4 inch. So we'll download some from a family, but then we'll need to make some adjustments to get those dimensions. So I'm going to go to Load Autodesk Family, and I'm looking for details. So I can eliminate everything from here. So I see everything, and then go, oops, let's go back there. Type in metal and look for detail items. So when you see the full menu, if you click on the detail items and then hit metal, you'll see all these various components. The one that I'm looking for is a runner. So runner channels. So this is what I'm going to click on, and I'm going to load this. And when I go to annotate component, you should see that a bunch were downloaded. Now, again, I'm going to change these a little bit. So I'll click on this first one here and edit the type, and I'll duplicate it. So I'm going to make one that's 3 5/8 of an inch. And I'll change these dimensions. And this one is going to be 1.25. And okay. All right, so now I have one, and I'll just place it to the side there. This one is going to be at the top of the wall. Now keep in mind that it's a little different when detailing metal framed structures versus wood frame structures. If we go to our wall section for structure 1, you can see here that the top plates, there's 2 of them, and they basically need to be notched into the rafter. So we don't have the same condition with metal framing. I will take this and rotate it around 180 degrees so it's facing the proper way. But I'm not going to place it within the zone of the ceiling or the rafter there. I'm going to move it from here to here. Then I'm going to move it down a little bit. So maybe 1.5 inches. Okay, so there it is. Actually, I think I'll move it up 5 inches. Now, because it's been constructed to the size that fits the studs, the 3 5/8, it doesn't read well on top of all of these other lines. So, I'm going to actually come in here and add more line work to the top of it to make it stand out a little bit more. And I just want something that I can kind of point to a little bit. I'll bring it over just a little bit, 1/16 of an inch. Let's try it another 1/16, so full All right, just so it's visible there. Okay, so there's my top track. So here's a detail where there is a joist serving as the ceiling structure. And ours, we don't have this, but you can see here, there's a clip angle between the members, and that's what's securing the rafter and the ceiling joist to the wall. And you can see here in this image, in this case, this is a cathedral ceiling that's bearing on this metal framed wall. You can see them along here and also along here. There's a clip that gets attached to the top of that top track or top runner. And that's what secures the rafter to the wall. So we will have something similar to this. So in order to sort of suggest how this is going to come together, I'm going to go to the Annotate tab, and I'm going to do a detail line. And I'm going to use some hidden lines to illustrate this. I'll bring it up maybe 6 inches. See if we can get a line that has slightly. Okay, let's move this over 1/2 inch so it's visible. And I don't want to move this over. Put that back. Oh, I see it's connected. It's a little bit irritating. Let's see if we can reconstruct that line so it doesn't attach to the wall. We may have to offset it. So I'm going to make this 6 inches and I'm going to offset it. You can leave it at 1/4 inch is fine. Right, and then I'm going to offset this one. Let's see here, 3 and 1/8. Erase this one and draw a line along the top here. Right, and then we'll make a notation of that. All right, I also need a way of attaching the sheathing to something. So we'll use some detail lines to generate something to some kind of metal, bent metal that will be used for that purpose. I'm going to make a circle here that's 3 inches. And my detail lines set to thin medium. And then I will offset those 1/4 inch. Okay, and then I can erase the ones that I started off with. All right, so that gives me an attachment point for that sheathing. And I'm going to create a runner like this one that will be here. This one is going to close off the edge of the rafters, and it will serve as an attachment point for the fascia. So let's see here. Now this could be done with either, thin medium lines or creating a duplicate of this runner over here. I think since we're only going to have one of these, it may be easier to just construct these out of detail lines. So I'm going to see here. I made a line and I will click on that line. Oops, didn't finish the line. Let's bring it up here. Use the offset tool. 1/4 inch is okay. And again, I just want to be able to see it. So I'll draw another detail line. 1.25 inches. and offset it. And fill it. The same thing up at the top. Okay. Now we can begin adding some notes. When I created this call out, I didn't change the scale of the detail. This wall section at structure 1 is 3/4, and we want this to be the same. Okay, so you see a slightly higher level of detail when you make that adjustment. So now we're ready to add notes. So we'll concentrate on the components that are part of this Eave detail first, and then we'll work our way down the wall. So go to annotate and text, and instead of this 1/4-inch aerial, we'll use the smaller one like we did before. And I'll go ahead and place the first note, all capitals, aluminum, standing seam roof. Okay, and we may need to kind of move things around a little bit, but for the moment, that will work well. So these are the components that need to be identified with your annotations. Keep in mind, we like to start with the outermost material and continue to work our way into the assembly. And then sometimes you need to reference or identify components from the opposite side. Maintain alignment on the left edge. Make sure all of your notations are capital letters, like I have here. And always bring a horizontal out before you break into a diagonal line. So I'll come in a little closer so you can see what is being pointed to. This is the aluminum roof. The membrane is this item, this dashed item. The sheathing is the next layer. The crosshatch pattern is the rigid insulation. The plywood sheathing is this layer right here. The rafter is this component right here. So you can point, anywhere in here. You could point to the top of it. You could bring your arrowhead down a little bit lower. Just try to be consistent with where you're placing them with respect to what you're illustrating. Typically, if you're cutting through something, you want to point to the face of that component. We have the drip edge right here and the gutter. We have a fascia and a soffit, and these are made out of cedar because these are naturally decay resistant woods, so they need less maintenance and will fare better in moist climates. On the interior side, you're going to call out the gypsum wallboard ceiling, the anchor clip that attaches the rafters to the wall, and the C-runner that runs along the top. Now, as far as the wall assembly, that will be in the next portion. These level identifiers are not going to be used for this one, so we can go ahead and hide those. So I'll hide all 3 of these.